Hello, welcome to another episode of Where Have You Been Lately? Brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
I'm going to trick you every time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
You're trying to trick me.
I am.
But fortunately, I do know my name.
That's good. It's a good start. So here on Where Have You Been Lately, we like to talk about places that we've visited while driving, or maybe specifically went to go visit, because there's a lot of neat stuff and history and just cool stuff to see all around us. So we like to find it and share it with you all. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you can take a trip there. So I'm gonna.
Oh, so where have you been lately?
Where have I been lately? I am gonna, leave the great state of Pennsylvania, which we normally do try to stay here in PA. But a little while ago, I had to talk about this because it's just too cool. So I'm gonna put a photo up here, and that is an award-winning photo, let me tell you, because it's a terrible photo I took on my phone at night. Yes. I am standing on the beach of the Chesapeake Bay in Norfolk, Virginia, and it's at nighttime, and I'm looking towards the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. That's that strip of lights you see out there on the horizon. I've been to Norfolk several times. Feels like a lot. We had family down there, and my brother was in Virginia Beach for a while when he was in the military. So we were down, I've been down there a couple times, and I've taken the Bay Bridge Tunnel a couple times, not this particular drive though. But I was standing on the beach and saw it all lit up at night, and I just thought it was really neat, and I decided I wanted to find out more about it. And it is really interesting, the history of this. Really, it's like an engineering feat. It's pretty amazing. So before we get into that, let's get our bearings here. So the tunnel connects southeastern Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula, and you can see that circled there on the map. That's the bridge tunnel that's circled there. This is really important because that tail off the Delmarva Peninsula is just not connected to the rest of Virginia in any way. That's a piece of Virginia, and if you were driving without that bridge tunnel, you'd have to go all the way up around the bay through Maryland before you could get back to Virginia.
If you did not want to get your feet wet.
If you did not want to get your feet wet, no. So it's not really practical. It's hard when you've got part of your state that's separated really from the rest of you. Michigan is kind of split up into, by the lake.
A big part.
Right.
This is just a little.
It's not exactly compared to the rest of Virginia. This is very small, but it's hanging out there in the water. So this tunnel is going to be very important. It opened in April 15th, 1964. So that black and white photo there, that is it in 1964, the year it opened. It was supposedly selected as, quote, one of the 7 engineering wonders of the modern world in an international competition with over 100 entries. I can't find anything more specific, like who bestowed this honor upon it, what group. I've seen that in a couple random things that I was looking at. But I do know that in 1965, the American Society of Civil Engineers named it an outstanding civil engineering achievement. And it really is. It's really cool. So now there you can see it from the sky, and that's how it looks today. And you'll see you can see the bridge, and there's like 2 breaks in it. That's where the tunnel, the 2 tunnels go. And by 2020, over 140 million commercial and passenger vehicles have crossed the bridge tunnel. So obviously that number has gone up, but if you were to divide that by the number of years open, it's 2.5 million a year. That's quite a bit of traffic.
It is.
It is. That's a lot. Traffic that's being saved from going all the way around the bay. Now here's a contemporary bird's eye view, we had the 1964 one. You saw the thing that featured the whole, almost the whole tunnel. You see the two breaks. And now we have a contemporary bird's eye view because this has had to be updated since it opened. In summer of 1995 began the parallel project. So they needed to accommodate more traffic, essentially. So they've built this kind of parallel bridge. You can see it, how they merge into the same tunnel. And you can see the islands, the man-made islands there that they built to facilitate that transition from bridge to tunnel. So pretty cool. Now I keep calling it the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, or CBBT, but officially that is not its name. Its name is actually the Lucius J. Kellum Jr. Bridge Tunnel, and that is Lucius J. Kellum there on your screen, a photo of him. Now it was officially named that in 1987, so it took a long time for them to name it that. Kellum was one who spearheaded the project, and he was a member of the commission from 1954 to 1995, and he died. So he was really into this. So it is named for him. Almost nobody calls it that, though. It's the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. I never did. Yeah, if you go on the site, even like the website, it's like cbbt.com or something. But officially, it's the Lucius J. Kellum. So let's talk about what was going on before they built this in 1964. I talk about people driving around the bay, and that did happen. However, there also was a ferry service. So from about the early 30s to 1954, there was a private company that is managing this ferry service between these two points, Virginia's Eastern Shore and the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. The ferries can take about 50 to 60 cars each. Now we just said that there's like an average of what, 2.5 million a year. 50, 60 cars a piece, that's not going to keep up. Here, and the boats, as you'll see, are pretty, they're old. They're not, the newest ferries. Here's one of them. This one has an interesting story. This is the Cape Henlopen. That's what it's called now. It was a Navy tank landing ship in World War II. It was called the Buncombe County, and it participated in the D-Day invasion at Normandy Beach. And you can kind of see the look of it when you could see tanks coming out of that. It's, the military decommissioned it, and the Chesapeake Bay Ferry Authority took it in 1961 and refitted it to make it a commercial or residential.
There's a red tank right there.
Yes, that's a tank, all right.
Oh no, that's a car. Sorry.
Now, so it's an older boat already, and it's a private company. It's not keeping up with the traffic because the ships are increasing too. So the Virginia General Assembly creates the Chesapeake Bay Ferry District and the Chesapeake Bay Ferry Commission to manage this. And those two groups are going to later become the Chesapeake Bay Bridge District and the Bridge and Tunnel District and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and Tunnel Commission. So they're going to start transforming this. And the commission has the authorization to acquire this former private company through bond financing. And they're going to also start a new service between the Eastern Shore and the Hampton, Newport News area. So it's the end of privatization. That's the first step. Then in 1956, the General Assembly tells the commission that they can start exploring ways of building a fixed crossing because it's too much. It's too much traffic, and it's only getting worse. So 4 years later, in 1960, the commission sold $200 million in revenue bonds to private investors, and they're going to pay the principal and the interest back by the toll money that they collect when the bridge tunnel opens. So that was a big deal for them. They wanted to advertise that no tax money was used for this project. It's going to basically fund itself or whatever.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Honestly, like, Virginia really needs this. because like it's really, you can't just have a part of your state that disconnected, and it's just getting a little crazy there in the bay managing all that. So it took 42 months of construction to open that bridge tunnel to traffic, and that's when the ferry service stopped then too. They stopped running the ferries.
When was this again?
64 is when it opened, and then the ferry stopped. So if you go back to that photo real quick of the map, you know, where you can, or I'm sorry, of the overhead shot where you can see the bridge and then like the two chunks taken out, which is the tunnel portion. What is the purpose of that? You know, why would you want to do that? Well, the biggest thing is that it allows shipping routes to continue. You know, I don't know. I'm sure most of us have been stuck when a drawbridge is up. You wait a while. The cars wait, and then the ships are going to have to wait until the drawbridge is up and they can proceed. So this is a way to not interrupt that service. It's also better for wildlife and birds. And if you go on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel's website, they have galleries of like the creatures that hang out like on the man-made islands that they made. And it's really neat. There's even like, there's like seals hanging out on the rocks there of the islands that they created. And some of them are taken by visitors because there are like lookout points you can stop your car and get out and look around, or they're taken by employees there. And yeah, even whales, you know, whales can get through this a little better too.
Sitting on the rocks?
Yeah, they sit on the rocks. And then there's your bill for rebuilding the man-made island. So building this thing is also a really interesting story. So you're going to see here a boat arriving with workers. They're leaving Little Creek, which is like a neighborhood, I guess, for lack of a better word down there. Some of them were experienced laborers or engineers, and they moved a lot from state to state. But some were locals who were living at home, you know, bringing lunches that their moms packed because they were still pretty young. I read a story about Dickie Foster. Isn't that a great, that's a kid that just got out of school in 1962. I can see it. Dickie Foster was hired soon after he graduated from Norview High School in Norfolk. He was placed on shore duty at the main yard near Little Creek, and within a couple of weeks, his work ethic was noticed. A supervisor approached him. "Do you want to work on the water?" And that was the start for him to get out in the field, the water. That story is from an article I'm going to mention at the end here because it's a great article, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But you'll notice too that these guys are wearing life jackets while they're working. There's another photo of the guys actually working. They still got their life jackets on. Life jackets were mandatory to work out here. And the boat ride, I forgot to mention. So obviously, like, you can't pull your car up to where you're working and just get out and start working. The boat ride could take up to 90 minutes one way. They were out far enough. It could take up to 90 minutes. And the union workers went on strike for 26 days because they weren't being paid for that boat ride.
I was wondering about that. I was thinking, you know, today I knew they would be paying for them for that ride. You know, that's 3 hours a day.
Yes, that's a lot.
But back in the 60s,
no,
it wasn't quite the same.
They had to fight for that, and they did. After 26 days of striking, they got paid $15 a week to compensate them for the boat rides.
Okay.
So, which is interesting. It's not really. But I guess I'm sure the company felt, hey, some days it isn't 90 minutes, so you're making out on those days.
Yeah. But
that's a lot of time.
That's $1 an hour.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
3 hours. 3 hours a day times 5.
That's a lot. But they got that at least. Even though these life jackets and everything was mandatory, there were 7 deaths related to the construction of this. So 2 men were killed when a boiler exploded. 2 died when a boom on one of the islands collapsed. Another was killed when a cable snapped and struck him, and another was electrocuted. The 7th death happened at the yard in Texas where the tunnel sections were cast. Yeah, they cast those tunnels all the way in Texas and freighted them. I just can't imagine.
They probably put them on a ship and brought them in.
Probably, yep. Now, the bridge tunnel, like the actual part, I guess, that spans over the water is 17.6 miles, and it's considered the world's largest bridge tunnel complex. So, in actuality, it's more like 23 when you add in all the roads on land to get into it that had to be constructed. So really the whole thing's about 23 miles. And, you know, I read it's not that necessarily one of these elements was the biggest. It's not the longest tunnel. It's not the longest bridge. But you put them all together, and there's so many different things going on. It's really unique in how many engineering things are going on and elements with this thing. So there are so many construction photos. I don't even have them all in here, but these next 3 are the tunnel sections being installed. So they arrived plugged. You know, they're not hollow. You can't drive through them. They arrived that way. That's how they submerged them. So they arrive a plugged tunnel. They use tugs to move the tunnel section into place. And then they are lowered into these underwater ditches that are lined with rocks. They're lowered down there, and once you can see the one getting partially submerged there too in these photos. And the tunnels themselves, each tube section was 37 feet wide and 296 feet long. So once they're lowered and they build that transition back to the bridge part, that's when they unplug them so that they can be driven through. They're low enough that ships and boats can travel right over them. And there's 2 tunnels. There's the Baltimore and the Thimble Shoal. And inside the tunnels, here's a fun fact, 5.5 million tiles are inside those tunnels. That's a lot of tile. Now they connect to the bridge sections, like I said, on these man-made islands that are each about as large as a football field. So there's 4 islands, you know, 2 ends to each tunnel, and there's 2 tunnels. So like I said, there's so many cool photos. There's the one up there is the man-made tunnel, or the man-made island starting to be formed. You can see there's taken inside of the tunnel, all the scaffolding that's in there. They're pouring the concrete in there.
I have a question, how deep is the water that they're working? Because I don't think it's that deep.
No,
there.
I think the deepest it gets is 100 feet.
Oh, I didn't even think that. Because just the way the bridge is made, it seems like it's a causeway, most of it.
Yeah, it's
and
lower.
I always think of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not terribly high, the bridge. There is one high part of it, and that supposedly was to allow fishing boats access through. They didn't have to go all the way out into the middle of the bay.
I was thinking it was relatively shallow, and where the tunnels were was like a channel that was made, you know, for ships, because there's serious ships going in and out of there.
That's a big shipping area, plus all the military stuff that's going through there too. I
was telling Kendra right before, I was in the Navy and I was based there, and I was on an aircraft carrier, and they don't get any bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to see when we sailed over that, but for some reason I never did. And you know, we did multiple times a year, and just to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's cool.
Wave to the people.
Exactly.
But
it's amazing, because I'm always interested how this stuff gets built, because my mind doesn't think like that. just naturally. So when I read about it, I'm just in awe of all the engineering that went into it. You could see, you know, them putting precast concrete girders on, you know, this photo. That's part of the bridge section. And then the next photo after that is really cool. That's what they call the two-headed monster. So the one, you can see it's like one contraption with a crane on each end. So the one crane will cut the piles to the correct height, and the other one caps them. And you can see that on the photo. On the one side they're capped, and the other side they're still uneven with each other, which is just, that's a really neat photo. That's probably one of my favorites. So now, one of the hazards to working on this, and something that that really hurt them schedule-wise a couple times, was the weather. So hurricanes, nor'easters, you know, this is stuff that really affects them. So one of the biggest ones was the Ash Wednesday storm of 1962, which was a powerful nor'easter that caused $700,000 in damage to just Big D. So what is Big D? He is in the background of the photo that's up there now. That was a big piece of equipment, a crane. It was just demolished in this storm, and it sank to the bottom of the bay floor. I mean, that's a huge piece of equipment. Obviously, that really put them behind and cost a lot of money. So weather was an issue. And, you know, I've said it before, it had to get modernized at one point, and it's actually getting added to again. They are going to build a parallel tunnel because right now you're kind of like at a bottleneck there at the tunnels. So they have to build, they help with the bridge by adding, but now they need to add another tunnel. So they're going to add one to the Thimble Shoal Channel. It is currently under construction. So I saw somewhere it said expected to open 2022, but Virginia's website says 2024. So I'm assuming that probably between COVID and money, they've gotten behind. The new tunnel will have 2 southbound lanes, and the existing tunnel will be for the northbound. And it will take about 42,000 cubic yards of concrete. So there's a lot of material and time going into these. If you want to learn more about this, there's a really great article, and that's where I learned about our friend Dickie Foster there. And the article has great photos, and it has neat videos as well, and it's focused a lot on the workers, interviews with the workers, really good stories. You can Google When Men Split the Sea. So it was written in 2014 by Dave Forster for the Virginian Pilot. It's the newspaper down there. And he did a really neat job, and it was endlessly fascinating. And there's so many other cool photos of this being built, and their stories are just great. So check that out. And if you're ever finding yourself needing to go to Norfolk, if you don't mind paying the toll.
How much is the toll? Do you remember?
You know, I thought a couple years ago when I was on it, it was 20 some, but I looked it up the other day. I think I saw 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not too bad, I guess.
But yeah, you know, otherwise, the best way to get from here would be like 95. Yeah. No one likes to do that. But the thing is,
let's say it's $18 or 20, whatever.
Yeah.
Not only are you paying a toll because it's a limited access thing, but it's like really neat.
It's cool.
And so you're kind of paying for the entertainment.
Experience, yes.
Experience,
yeah. It's
and
neat.
I remember the times driving on it, and you'd be out in the middle of it, and you pretty much don't see land.
No.
It's just
when
wide open.
Yeah, when you're like in the middle of it, you don't see
because you figure the
else.
land at the end is really flat, and you're looking at these pictures, and I can see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like you can see hills in the distance.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a couple things, and you mentioned the volume that goes through there every year. What was it?
About if you average it out, 2.5 million.
Okay, so
it's probably more than that now.
in the 50s, early 60s, you know, I don't think it was anywhere near that because there's a lot more traffic everywhere now.
Yep.
When I was in the Navy, you know, coming home, going down, of course, I always went on that road, and I never remember any bottlenecks and a lot of traffic. It was just kind of like a regular, you know, there might be a car 100 yards in front of you or something. But and another thing is, one time I'm going down, I'm going south on Route 13, which is that road, and I'm on the Delmarva Peninsula, and I'm before the bridge, and there's nothing.
No.
Okay.
There is
nothing with a capital N. There's no houses or something. Yeah. And I was sort of getting tired of driving, and you don't want to get tired of driving on that bridge.
No, you don't.
So I saw a road going off to the right, and there must have been an old abandoned building there. And I just thought, I wonder where this road goes. And the road was like a 4-lane road with an island in the middle. And I'm driving down, and I see these old gas stations abandoned and some other buildings. I'm thinking, what is this? And it ends at the waterfront, and I figured out that was where the ferry went.
I bet.
And so you figure they closed in 64. I was there 73 and beyond that. So, you know, it was like 9 years old or so that they were closed. And it was just, and it was, I remember it was late at night, and you see these old abandoned buildings.
That is cool.
So,
I wonder if they're still there.
I don't know.
That's neat.
It's almost 50 years ago now, so.
Yeah.
It's probably condos there.
And no one's going to stop there now.
No.
Because they're going right for that bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But I always thought that was just neat going on that bridge.
It is.
And I remember when I first got to Norfolk and first had a car down there, and I think, oh wow, I'm going to be able to do this, because I remember, I'm aging myself maybe, but I vaguely remember when that opened up. You know, I was in grade school, and I'm just hearing about it once in a while, and now I can actually drive on it. And I also remember, just like I think any causeway, it has a rhythm to it. Just, you know,
yes. Yes, it does.
For a mile after a mile after a mile.
For 17.6.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
That's why I wanted to make sure I was awake before I got on there.
Good idea. Yeah, it's a really neat thing to drive. Next time I do it, I want to get out at like the vantage points, like the scenic things, because I'm just curious now what that would be like. And
one of these pictures you showed, it's that one right there.
Yeah.
You can see the little fishing pier.
The pier, yeah. It's so neat. It's just a really neat thing, and I just can't imagine. The people that build it are a lot smarter than me, that's all I can say. It's amazing.
Yeah, but they're probably jealous because you know so much about museum.
That's true.
Directorship.
That's true. So that's where I've been lately, and I'm sorry I left Pennsylvania, but it was too cool to not talk about.
I'm glad you did this, because you know I was over there many times, and that's kind of you know, just a lot of you know, when I was in the Navy for 3.5 years, I was down in Norfolk area, and just that whole area is, you know, there's a lot of good memories there.
It is. It's neat.
So
it's neat. Cool.
Okay.
Well, thanks, and we will see you next time, and we'll find out where one of us has been lately. So see you then, and we'll hope you see us too at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. Thanks for watching.